Hello, everyone. Welcome to this fireside chat. I'm very excited to be talking with Alvin Graylin, the China president for HTC. We're going to talk about VR, AR industry in general from different perspectives, from VC perspective, from the industry development trends perspective. Alvin is really an expert and veteran in this industry, so I'm really happy to have Alvin with me. But first, Alvin, let's start with the industry, where it is right now and where, what future trends do you see going forward, particularly in light of, the past 15 months of pandemic, a global pandemic that may, help push consumers to adapt to AV and AR and VR perhaps more easily.
Yeah, so I think this is actually a really good time we're having this conversation because over the last 15 months, as you're saying, the pandemic has really taken the XR industry to a different level of awareness and interest in terms of adoption, particularly in the B2B space, where we're seeing huge amounts of large and small companies looking at using VR both for remote collaboration, remote training, and remote events. In fact, in the middle of May, we just had an event that had over 50,000 people join in a virtual event from around the world, from over 100 countries around the world, because they cannot travel. So the fact that we're able to deliver a live in-person like experience without having to leave your home is something that is extremely valuable to companies around the world today. And I think it'll become a long-term sustained trend even after the pandemic subsides, because the cost of travel and the value of having a hybrid working model is becoming more and more apparent to companies around the world.
Could you talk about specific use case scenarios? You mentioned B2B, what specific use case scenario do you see very strong interest from users? And also, can you talk about the 2C market as well?
Yeah, sure. So in the B2B side, we're seeing across all major industries the desire to adopt, let's say, we just say for education in their schools around the world that are looking at using this as an immersive learning model to take very complex concepts and be able to deliver it in a simple, interactive way versus just looking at a blackboard or versus looking at a video, which can give you a very limited number of dimensions to work in. In fact, for a lot of research that we've done recently, we're finding that attention span is much higher. The level of interest and excitement from learning, the ability to remember and grasp concepts, as well as the ability to interact in a spatial way, really allows information to be delivered to the learner in a much more effective manner. In terms of training for B2B side, where we're also finding that for, let's say, if you're a truck driver or a forklift driver, or if you're an Air Force pilot, if you're a fireman, to be put into various situations that can be simulated to feel and look like the real thing without having to go in there and without having to worry about the danger. And if you're a doctor, you don't want to be operating on a patient for the first time in real life. You want to simulate and practice it a few times. In fact, there's been a recent study at Oxford that showed if you were doing a practice surgery in VR and then you went to do the real thing, about 80% of them were able to finish of these medical students were able to finish the surgery by themselves. Whereas if they just did it on paper or through talking with the doctors or with the professors, 0% of them actually finished the actual procedures without assistance. So, I mean, it's dramatic improvement in terms of value of learning and education. We're also working with one of the biggest driving schools in the world in Beijing. They graduate around 250,000 students a year. And they've essentially forced every single student now to do driving practice inside VR so they can get every situation they can imagine, everything from, snow to rain to a cat jumping in front of them to emergency, trucks happening, things that you would not be able to do in the real world. But by having them go through all these scenarios, they are able to be much more calm when they take the real test. And they're finding that they're able to increase about 50% effectiveness rate in terms of passing the first time driving test. So, across the board, the value is there. Now, you were talking about the B2C side. Of course, people know VR mostly, a lot of people have experienced it mostly in VR arcades or for games, at home. And I think that's a business that has definitely grown a lot over the last, 12 months or so, especially with the new devices that are coming out. We just launched our new Vive Focus 3 device and our Vive Pro 2 device. Targeted towards B2B users mostly, but also for high-end prosumer consumers. So we really think that the industry is going to a different level, having these devices now that are 5K resolution. So essentially you have super high resolution screens that you can work at for an entire day, replace your monitors, and be able to do that remote office in a way that has never been done before. So everybody can have a personalized professional workspace. And even if their family or their pets around them, they can still remain very focused by putting on a headset. So, I think, these are the kind of changes that are going to stick in this industry. And I think the VR and XR industry is definitely ready for a new upward trend.
Mm-hmm. So what about for devices, VR, AR headset or glasses? Obviously, some people feel like they need to become more flexible, more light, more comfortable to wear. Like, what other trends do you see? How should they evolve?
Sure. I think, if you look at over the last 5-6 years since we launched the first Vive products that essentially set out this new wave of VR interest, the devices are getting, lighter, they're getting more portable, they're becoming more wireless, and the resolution has gone up significantly. So with our new devices now, we have a front back 50-50 balance, which means that you essentially don't feel any weight on your head anymore. Whereas before, almost all the devices out there were very front heavy. So you would feel weight on your nose or on your cheeks, which creates some discomfort after a long use. Now you can use it essentially for hours on end and not really feel that issue. On the AR side, there's definitely now devices that are much lighter, that are kind of glasses type devices, but their field of view is going to be a little bit more narrow. So they're more still used in fairly vertical niche areas. But in a few years, when both these technologies really get to a mature cycle where you can have one device that can switch between VR and AR devices, I think it will become our primary computing device or computing interface. We will no longer need to have that phone in our pocket with a screen and take it out every time, or have that computer on our desktop, because we'll have a screen in front of our eyes essentially 24 hours a day, or at least when you're not sleeping. And that screen will give you every information you need, right? And in fact, it will feel more like a world than a screen because it will surround you, and it will turn and move with you, and it will be able to recognize your hands and your voice and your eye movement, so that you interface with it the same way you do the real world. I think that's where the things are really progressing, where you're going to get this next generation of people growing up and children growing up, feeling that that's the most natural way to interface with computers and with each other. And it will make them a lot more efficient. It will make them a lot smarter, because any information they need can be accessible immediately. And I think that's, it takes that saying of information at your fingertips to even closer, because essentially it's directly in your eyes, directly in your brain. And I think that's going to make the world a better place.
All right. So aside from your role as a China president at HTC, you also sit on some leadership positions at venture capital alliances or associations, and also you're involved in VC activities in the industry, and also yourself has been an entrepreneur in the past as well. So for our audience who might be thinking about setting up a startup in the industry, what area or what direction would you suggest would present the best opportunity going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually a really great time to be doing startup activities in the XR space. You can think of this as kind of around the 2007, 2008 period for the mobile space. Right when devices are getting to be accessible, when they're being adopted, when there's a certain level of excitement, but it's still not all the way there yet, right? And so if you start and do something now, you'll be able to climb onto that wave right when it takes off. And as the president for the BRVC, and we look at thousands of companies around the world. I can tell you that over the last 3 years, there's been a substantial increase in total investment in the space. The deal qualities are getting better and better. The first wave that came out in the 2015, 2016 range, those startups a lot of them were chasing a short-term trend and trying to get quick wins, but they weren't really dedicated. But the ones that have stayed on and have maintained the development over the last 5-6 years in the VR space, they are now at a much more mature stage, and the quality of products are much better, and the quality of underlying technology are also much better. So they can deliver that experience that users are expecting. And so I'm actually quite excited about what's happening in the industry today, both from the larger established companies as well as from the startups. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities for startups to prosper, particularly if they're in the content space, in the solution space, in kind of accessories that really support the ecosystems of the larger vendors. I think it's probably a little bit too late now to get into trying to create your own hardware ecosystem, and for startups that's always difficult. But if you have a piece of content that you think can solve a real world problem, and if you think about it, pretty much every successful thing that has happened on the internet on mobile will get duplicated again in VR, and will be interfaced in a new and better way. And so if you can solve those existing problems that are there today, but more efficiently through a full brain, full body interface, then I think there's an opportunity for you to be, the next Google or the next Instagram or whatever, right? So, so I think it's really a blue ocean opportunity right now for startups. And
maybe could you give us like 1 or 2 examples of the some of the recent startups you've seen that you have been super impressed with?
Yeah, so one of the companies we've invested in called vHaptics, they do full body haptics, and so you essentially put on a little vest and then some things on your arm and your feet, and you can essentially mimic physical touch and vibrations throughout your body. And they have little dots on there, so you can even mimic a snake going around your body when you're playing a game or when you're doing a simulation. Right?
It sounds quite scary.
It's scary, but it makes the experience a lot more real, right? So if you're playing a shooting game, you can actually feel the bullets hitting you at different parts of your body, and so that takes people the immersion level to a different level. There are companies who are now making enterprise solutions for safety training that are doing quite well. For design, if you're a 3D design shop and you can help people make cars and planes more efficiently. In fact, we just announced a recent case study with Bugatti. They're one of the supercar companies. They were able to reduce their design time by 40% by using VR to do their design and testing and validation virtually before they build a physical car. Right? In the past, people used to make clay models, and it would take months and months to change the clay, have the people come into the physical place to do reviews. Now they can do all of that virtually from anywhere in the world and be much more efficient and make changes instantly, right? So, we worked with Bell Helicopters last year, and they were able to take a 6 to 7 year development cycle for a helicopter to 6 months from concept to a flying device. I mean, that's just crazy fast. If you know the aerospace industry, that's just unheard of, to have a new plane or a new helicopter being able to take flight within 6 months of being started in terms of design. So those kind of things are definitely quite impressive. There are companies that are doing nurse training or health training. There's a company that we've also invested in called Nanome. They do gene and protein editing in VR, because there's these proteins with thousands and thousands of different molecules in it, and being able to visualize it in a 3D space, it makes it a lot more easier to understand. And so they're helping with drug discovery, they're helping with gene therapy. Those kind of companies I think are going to be the next major startups that are going to create
Right.
unicorn
But
status.
yeah, but what you have described make me feel like there is a certain parallel to AI companies. So AI is a sector I'm particularly familiar with. AI is an enabler. It
Mhm.
serves like various different industries, right? So, but that's a problem because that means it's really difficult to scale. It's difficult to standardize your products. And in the end, it also, involves of data ownership, whether the company wants to, whether, give their data to a third party provider. So,
I think it's a little bit different. I mean, if you look at the AI companies, a lot of them are more about, let's say, computer vision, right? It would just be a component of a technology, a component of a solution. And they don't really, the end user don't necessarily touch and feel the technology. Whereas with a VR solution, if I'm making a solution that will do, let's say medical training, right? That solution can be run on any of the devices that are in the market. So I see them more like app vendors on a mobile ecosystem than an AI solution. Right? So if I have a computer vision company, I might sell to the government to do face recognition, but it's the government that is actually using it. It's not necessarily an end user. I mean, you have things like the face app ones that help you change your face, make you look older, those kind of things. But I think that's a limited use case. Whereas VR technologies, I think, will actually be what the end user touches. So it's kind of like if you want to be the next Instagram or Twitter or Uber, you're going to be the app that is running on VR. So if you want to do virtual travel, if you want to do virtual education, if you want to do virtual training, and all of these are the apps that the end user will use. If you're going to make a virtual store, and that store allows you to walk through a virtual mall and be able to go into each of the malls and have a direct interface, interaction with the salespeople, that's something that is kind of mimicking what Amazon or Alibaba is doing today, right?
mhm.
So you're not a component technology. You're actually the end user facing technology.
Mm-hmm. That's an important distinction. We are running out of time, Alvin. But finally, just very quickly, like what challenges, major challenges you see in terms of, for deeper AR, VR adoption going forward?
I think the biggest challenge that I see right now is really having enough people understand the value of it, because XR, VR, AR technology is something that unless you've tried it, it's hard to imagine what it really means. And there's so many times where I've had people have been very skeptical. And then I say, well, why don't you just try it? And then once you put it on, they try it for 5-10 minutes, they take it off and they're like, wow, what you've been telling me, now I understand. And where can I get this? How much does this cost? Whereas before it was like, oh, I don't really believe in it. It's a hype, blah, blah, blah.
So still user education issue.
I think it's the student user education and user ability for user to experience. Right, this is it's such a different interface that you can't really display it on a 2D screen and have people understand. So I think getting more devices out there, getting more people to try it, getting more location-based trial or entertainment facilities out there, I think that's one of the biggest challenges. But once that takes off and people start seeing the value on a broad base level, I think this technology will be on a trajectory that is as fast, if not faster, than what we've seen for mobile.
Wonderful. We're all very excited for that future. Alvin, thank you so much for your time. It's so great to talk to you today.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. And actually, one last word for your audience is that VRVC and ViveX, we are actually holding a virtual roadshow in July. So, if you're interested, do apply to be a startup, and we're going to have the best VCs in the world review it and maybe invest in it. So, come to the ViveX website and get more information.
All right. Thank you, Alvin.
Thanks, Lena. And good luck, everybody. It's going to be a good year for XR.